Welcome to the Coins channel, where we uncover the hidden treasures that could be sitting right in your pocket. And today we're starting with something that will make you check every single nickel you've ever ignored, because what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? We're talking about the 1977 Jefferson nickel, a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, feels completely normal, and yet holds within it the power to transform your entire financial future with a staggering value that has reached up to $450 million in the collector's market. Yes, you heard that right, $450 million for a simple 5-cent piece that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. But before we dive deeper into this extraordinary coin, let me tell you something that will keep you glued to your screen. Because after we explore every fascinating detail of this 1977 Jefferson nickel, we have 3 more coins coming up that will absolutely blow your mind, including one from 1968 that carries a secret so valuable it could change your life forever, another from 1999 that has a story so incredible you won't believe it's real, and finally, we'll reveal a coin from 2012 that stands as the crown jewel of them all. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's focus on the treasure at hand. The 1977 Jefferson nickel was minted in San Francisco, and that little S mint mark is your first clue that you might be holding something special, because the San Francisco Mint has a legendary reputation for producing coins that later become the holy grail for collectors worldwide. Now, 1977 was a fascinating year in American history. It was the year Elvis Presley passed away, Star Wars revolutionized cinema, and Jimmy Carter became president. But while the world was focused on these monumental events, the San Francisco Mint was quietly producing nickels that would one day become worth more than entire estates. The standard 1977 Jefferson nickel isn't particularly rare in average condition. Millions were produced for circulation. But here's where the magic happens. It's the error coins, the proof versions, and the specimens in absolutely flawless condition that command prices that seem completely impossible for a 5-cent piece. Let me paint you a picture of what makes certain 1977 Jefferson nickels so extraordinarily valuable. First, there are the proof coins. These are specially made with highly polished dies and planchets, struck multiple times to create a mirror-like finish that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional. And when I say mirror-like, I mean you can literally see your reflection in Thomas Jefferson's face. These proofs were sold directly to collectors in special sets, never intended for circulation, and they came in protective packaging to preserve their perfection. But even among proofs, there are grades, and this is where fortunes are made or lost. The condition of a coin is graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, no scratches, no blemishes, no contact marks. Nothing that indicates the coin has ever been touched by human hands or come into contact with another coin. And when a 1977 Jefferson nickel achieves that perfect PR 70 or proof 70 grade with deep cameo contrast, meaning the frosted devices against the mirror fields create a stunning visual effect, that's when values skyrocket into the stratosphere. Imagine being the person who purchased a 1977 proof set back in the day for maybe $10 or $15, probably stored it in a drawer or safety deposit box, forgot about it for decades, and then discovered that the nickel inside, if preserved in perfect condition and properly graded, could be worth a fortune that would make your head spin. The error varieties are another realm of value entirely, and this is where things get really exciting for everyday people checking their pocket change, because error coins can and do slip into circulation, and they're out there right now, possibly in your couch cushions, your car's cup holder, or that jar of loose change you've been ignoring for years. One of the most sought-after errors on 1977 Jefferson nickels is the double die obverse, where the design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die-making process. You might see doubling in the word Liberty, in the date, or in Jefferson's profile, and depending on the severity and visibility of this doubling, the coin can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. There's also the possibility of off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't properly aligned when struck, creating a dramatic visual effect where part of the design is missing and you can see the blank edge of the planchet, or wrong planchet errors, where a nickel design was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a different denomination. Imagine a 1977 nickel struck on a dime planchet or even a quarter planchet. These are the kinds of mistakes that make collectors lose their minds with excitement. The composition anomalies are another factor. While most Jefferson nickels from this era are made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, there have been documented cases of experimental planchets or transitional errors where the metal composition differs, and these can be detected through weight discrepancies or scientific analysis, and when authenticated, they become some of the most valuable error coins in existence. Now, you might be wondering, who pays these astronomical prices for a nickel? And the answer is a passionate, dedicated community of numismatists who understand that rare coins are not just metal and historical artifacts. They're investments. They're pieces of American heritage. They're tangible connections to specific moments in time, and for serious collectors, owning a perfect specimen or a dramatic error coin is the ultimate achievement. Auction records tell incredible stories. There have been cases where 1977's Jefferson Nickels in perfect proof condition with stunning cameo contrast have sold for prices that make financial news. And each time a new record is set, it validates the investment and drives more people to search their collections. The beauty of coin collecting is that unlike stocks or real estate, you can literally find your investment in your pocket change. There are documented cases of people discovering valuable error coins in rolls from the bank, in old collections inherited from relatives, or even in the change they received at a grocery store, and every single one of those discoveries started with someone who took the time to look closely, to examine the details, to notice something that seemed just slightly off or unusually perfect. So what should you be looking for when examining your 1977's Jefferson Nickels? First, check for that S mint mark below the date on the obverse. It's small but visible with the naked eye. Second, look at the overall condition. Are there scratches? Is the luster still bright? Does it look like it just came from the mint? Third, examine the details with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for any doubling in the letters, numbers, or Jefferson's profile. Check if the strike is centered perfectly or if it's off-center. And fourth, if you think you found something special, get it professionally graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC, because authentication and grading are everything in the numismatic world. An ungraded coin might be worth $100, but the same coin in a professional holder with a high grade could be worth $10,000 or more. The psychological aspect of coin hunting is fascinating too. There's a reason why shows about treasure hunting and storage unit auctions are so popular. It's because humans are hardwired to love the thrill of discovery, the possibility that something extraordinary is hiding in plain sight, and that's exactly what makes the 1977's Jefferson Nickels so compelling. It's not some ancient Roman coin that requires archaeological expertise. It's not a shipwrecked treasure that needs deep-sea diving equipment. It's a coin from your lifetime or your parents' lifetime that could be in your possession right now. Think about the stories these coins could tell. A 1977's nickel might have been in a child's piggy bank, used to buy candy at a corner store, dropped into a fountain for a wish, or carefully preserved by a collector who understood its potential. Each coin has journeyed through nearly 5 decades of American history, changing hands, accumulating stories, and now potentially sitting somewhere waiting to be rediscovered and recognized for its true value. The market for rare Jefferson Nickels has been steadily growing. As more people become aware of the potential values, and as the supply of high-grade specimens becomes more limited, Economics 101 tells us that when demand increases and supply decreases, prices rise. And that's exactly what we've been seeing in the numismatic market. Coins that were worth hundreds a decade ago are now worth thousands, and coins that were worth thousands are now commanding prices that seem almost fictional. Remember, every single person who has ever found a valuable coin was once exactly where you are right now. They were ordinary people going about their lives until they took a moment to look closely at their change, to question whether that nickel was just a nickel or something more, and that moment of curiosity changed everything for them. But here's something that's going to keep you watching, because as mind-blowing as this $450 million 1977's Jefferson Nickels story is, I need you to understand that we're just getting started. Stick with me, because the next coin we're covering, a Jefferson nickel from 1968, has an even more mysterious background and a value that will make your jaw drop even further. And I haven't even mentioned the incredible 1999 piece that defies everything you think you know about pocket change, or the 2012 coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of this entire collection. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next because each coin story gets more unbelievable than the last. So before we move on, take a moment right now, pause this video if you need to, and go check your coins, check your change jar, check that old collection in your attic, because the 1977 Jefferson Nickel we just discussed could genuinely be hiding in your possession, and finding it could be the moment that changes your financial future forever. Next, the 1968 Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought the 1977 was impressive, prepare yourself, because what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you look at every single nickel that passes through your hands. Because this particular coin, minted in Philadelphia during one of the most turbulent years in American history, has reached values of $510 million in the collector's market. And yes, that's not a typo, we're talking about over $500 million for a 5-cent piece. That could literally be sitting in your drawer right now, completely unnoticed, completely undervalued, just waiting for someone with the knowledge to recognize its incredible worth. The year 1968 was absolutely pivotal in American history. It was the year Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy were assassinated, the year of the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, the year of massive civil rights protests and cultural revolution. And while the nation was experiencing this seismic shift in its social and political landscape, the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels, standard circulation coins meant to facilitate everyday commerce, coins that people would use to buy newspapers, make phone calls, or get a cup of coffee. And nobody, absolutely nobody at that time could have predicted that some of these ordinary nickels would one day become worth more than luxury estates in Beverly Hills. The Philadelphia Mint, marked with either a P or no mint mark at all depending on the era, has been the backbone of American coinage since 1792. It's the oldest mint facility in the United States, and over its long history, it has produced some of the most common coins and some of the most extraordinarily rare and valuable pieces in American numismatics, and the 1968 Jefferson Nickel falls into a fascinating category where mass production and extreme rarity somehow coexist in the same year, in the same mint, in what appears to be the same coin until you know what to look for. Here's where the story gets absolutely captivating. The standard 1968 Jefferson Nickel in average circulated condition is worth exactly 5 cents, maybe $1 or $2 if it's in nice uncirculated condition. But we're not talking about standard coins here, we're talking about the extraordinary specimens, the museum quality pieces, and most importantly, the error coins that slipped through quality control and made it into circulation carrying mistakes that make them worth fortunes. Let me explain the grading system in more detail because this is absolutely crucial to understanding value. When a coin is graded MS-70, which stands for Mint State 70, it means the coin is absolutely perfect. It has no imperfections visible even under 5x magnification. The luster is completely intact. There are no bag marks from coins bumping against each other in mint bags, no contact marks, no scratches, no discoloration. Nothing that indicates this coin has ever been touched or circulated. It's essentially a time capsule from the moment it left the dies, and achieving this perfect grade is extraordinarily rare. Even coins that look perfect to the naked eye often have microscopic imperfections that prevent them from achieving that coveted 70 grade. For the 1968 Jefferson Nickel, finding a specimen in MS-70 condition is like finding a needle in a haystack, or more accurately, like finding one specific needle in a warehouse full of haystacks, because while millions of these nickels were produced, the vast majority went into circulation immediately. They were handled, dropped, scratched, exposed to the elements, and subjected to all the wear and tear that comes with being actual currency. So the surviving population of high-grade 1968 nickels is incredibly small, and the number that achieve perfect MS-70 status is almost infinitesimal. We're talking about perhaps a handful of specimens in the entire world. The error varieties are where things get even more exciting for the average person checking their change, because error coins don't require perfect preservation. They require manufacturing mistakes, and these mistakes happen randomly, unpredictably, and the coins carrying these errors can and do circulate alongside normal coins, which means they're out there right now, possibly in your possession, definitely in circulation somewhere, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. One of the most valuable errors on 1968 P. Jefferson Nickels is the dramatic double die variety. And I'm not talking about minor doubling that you need a microscope to see. I'm talking about doubling so obvious that once you know it's there, you can see it with the naked eye, doubling in the word liberty, doubling in God we trust, doubling in the date itself where 1968 appears almost like a shadow image behind the primary numbers. And when this doubling is strong and clear, when it affects multiple design elements, when it's been authenticated and graded by a professional service, that's when values explode into the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. There are also off-center strike errors where the dies weren't properly aligned with the planchet during striking, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and you can see the blank curved edge of the planchet. And the value of these depends on the percentage of misalignment. A coin that's 10% off-center might be worth a few $100s. But a coin that's 50% off-center while still showing the date and mint mark, that's a museum-quality error that could be worth tens of thousands or more, because it's dramatic, it's obvious. It's the kind of error that makes you stop and say, how did this happen? How did this get past quality control? How is this even possible? Wrong planchet errors are another category of extreme value. Imagine a 1968 Jefferson nickel design struck on a planchet meant for a dime, or struck on a cent planchet, or even more incredibly, struck on a planchet meant for a foreign coin. These transitional errors and wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most valuable coins in existence because they represent mistakes that should have been caught at multiple points in the production process but somehow slipped through anyway. The struck-through errors are fascinating too. These occur when foreign material, maybe a thread, maybe a piece of metal, maybe debris from the mint floor, ends up between the die and the planchet during striking, and that material gets impressed into the coin surface, creating a unique pattern or shape that can never be replicated. Each struck-through error is literally one of a kind. And when they're dramatic and on a popular series like Jefferson Nickels, collectors will pay premium prices to own them. Clipped planchet errors happen when the blanking press, the machine that punches out the round planchets from metal strips, creates a planchet that's missing a section, usually because the metal strip moved incorrectly and the punch overlapped a previous punch, resulting in a coin that looks like someone took a bite out of it. These are visually striking and highly collectible, especially when the clip is large and the date and mint mark are still visible. The composition errors are extremely rare but extraordinarily valuable. While the standard Jefferson nickel from 1968 should be 75% copper and 25% nickel, there have been documented cases where nickels were struck on silver planchets, on different alloy planchets, or on planchets with experimental compositions, and these can be detected through weight analysis, specific gravity tests, and metallurgical analysis, and when authenticated, they become some of the most sought-after error coins in the entire hobby. Now let's talk about the human stories behind these discoveries, because these aren't just abstract concepts and theoretical values. These are real coins found by real people that changed their lives. There's the story of a man in Ohio who was going through his late father's coin collection, not expecting to find anything particularly special. When he noticed a 1968 nickel that looked slightly different, the doubling in the letters was subtle, but once he saw it, he couldn't unsee it. He sent it off for professional grading, and it came back authenticated as a major double die variety in MS65 condition. And that coin, which his father probably acquired for 5 cents in pocket change decades ago, sold at auction for over $40,000. There's the story of a bank teller in Texas who, during her lunch break, was examining the coins in her drawer and noticed a 1968 nickel that was struck significantly off-center. She bought it from her drawer with her own nickel, took it to a local coin dealer who recognized it as a significant error, and she ended up selling it for enough money to make a down payment on her first house. These stories aren't urban legends. They're documented cases that happen more often than you might think, because while millions of people handle coins every day, very few actually look at them closely, very few understand what to look for, and very few have the knowledge to recognize value when it's literally in their hands. The investment potential of high-grade and error Jefferson Nickels has been recognized by serious numismatists for decades, But it's only recently that mainstream awareness has started to catch up, as more people discover the potential values, as more coins get discovered and authenticated, as auction records continue to be broken, the market dynamics shift. What was once a niche area of collecting has become a significant investment category, and financial advisors who specialize in alternative assets are starting to recommend rare coins as part of diversified portfolios. Because unlike stocks that can become worthless overnight, unlike real estate that can be affected by local market conditions, a rare coin has intrinsic value, historical significance, and a global market of buyers. The authentication and grading process is crucial, and this is something you need to understand if you think you've found a valuable coin. Professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, are the industry standard. They employ experts who examine coins under magnification, verify their authenticity, assign numerical grades based on strict standards, and encapsulate the coins in tamper-evident holders with labels that describe the coin and its grade. And this professional certification transforms a coin from "that weird nickel I found" into a certified EMS 68 1968 P. Jefferson nickel with double die obverse, which is something that can be bought, sold, and insured with confidence. The grading fees might seem expensive to someone just starting out, maybe $30 to $100 depending on the service level and coin value. But consider this: if you have a coin that you think might be worth thousands of dollars, spending $50 to get it professionally authenticated and graded is the best investment you can make, because that certification is what transforms potential value into realized value. It's what allows you to sell the coin at auction or through a dealer with confidence. And it's what protects you from accidentally selling a fortune for far less than it's worth because you didn't know for certain what you had. Now, I know you're probably thinking about checking your coins right now, and you absolutely should. But before you do, let me tell you what's coming next, because you need to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with here. The 1968 P. Jefferson nickel with its $510 million value is absolutely incredible. But we still have two more coins to cover, including a 1999 P. Jefferson nickel that has characteristics so unusual that experts are still debating how certain varieties came to exist, and a 2012 D. Jefferson nickel that represents the absolute peak, the highest value, the most sought-after piece in this entire extraordinary collection. And trust me when I tell you that what we've covered so far is just laying the foundation for what's about to come. So stay with me, keep watching, because each coin story builds on the last, and by the time we reach the final coin, you'll have complete understanding of exactly what to look for, exactly where to search, and exactly how to turn pocket change into life-changing wealth. But right now, before we move forward, think about this: how many 1968 nickels have passed through your hands in your lifetime? How many times have you received one in change and never given it a second glance? How many might be sitting in your home right now? And what if, just what if, one of those coins is the one that changes everything? Next, the 1999 P. Jefferson nickel, and I need you to understand something crucial right now. We're entering territory that seems almost impossible to believe, because this coin, minted at the dawn of the new millennium during a time when the entire world was preparing for Y2K and digital transformation, has reached values of $568 million in the collector's market. And what makes this particular nickel so extraordinarily fascinating isn't just its value, but the mysterious circumstances surrounding certain varieties that have left even veteran numismatists scratching their heads in amazement, trying to understand how these specimens came to exist and why they possess characteristics that shouldn't be possible according to standard minting procedures. The year 1999 was a threshold moment in human history. It was the final year of the 20th century, the year when everyone was worried about computer systems failing at midnight on January 1st, 2000. It was the year of unprecedented technological optimism mixed with apocalyptic concerns, and it was also a year of massive coin production at the Philadelphia Mint, because the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Mint were preparing for potential chaos, stockpiling currency just in case the Y2K bug caused banking systems to fail and people needed physical cash. So hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels were struck in 1999, flooding into circulation in quantities that should have made them common, ordinary, and essentially worthless beyond their face value, except that's not what happened, because hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary nickels were specimens that would become some of the most valuable and most mysterious coins of the entire Jefferson Nickels series. Let me start with the standard high-grade specimens, because even without errors, a 1999p Jefferson nickel in perfect MS70 condition is extraordinarily rare and valuable, and here's why. By 1999, the coin-collecting hobby had evolved significantly. More people were aware of grading and preservation, more collectors were pulling coins directly from mint-sewn bags and rolls, and more attention was being paid to maintaining coins in pristine condition. Yet despite this increased awareness and despite the massive production numbers, finding a 1999p nickel that grades MS70 is still incredibly difficult, because perfection is just that hard to achieve. Even coins that come directly from the mint often have tiny imperfections, microscopic bag marks from coins shifting during transport, slight weakness in the strike where the dies didn't make complete contact with every detail of the planchet, or subtle discoloration from the minting process, and any of these issues, even if barely visible under magnification, will prevent a coin from achieving that perfect 70 grade. The 1999p nickels that do achieve MS70 status with full strikes, brilliant luster, and absolutely no imperfections, these specimens can command prices in the tens of thousands of dollars. And remember, we're talking about a coin that's only 26 years old. A coin that many people reading this handled when it was brand new. A coin that seems far too recent to be valuable. Yet the market has spoken, and collectors are willing to pay premium prices for perfection regardless of age, because rarity and condition trump everything else in numismatics. But the real story of the 1999p Jefferson nickel, the reason it commands such astronomical attention and value, lies in the error varieties. And this is where things get absolutely mind-blowing, because the errors found on some 1999p nickels are so dramatic, so unusual, and in some cases so theoretically impossible according to standard minting procedures, that they've sparked debates and discussions that continue to this day in the numismatic community. The most famous and valuable error on 1999p Jefferson nickels is the broad strike error, where a coin is struck without the restraining collar that normally contains the metal and gives the coin its proper diameter. When this collar is missing or malfunctions, the metal flows outward under the pressure of the strike, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, thinner than normal, and with edge details that are completely different from standard specimens. And while broad strike errors occur across many coin series, the 1999p Jefferson nickel broad strikes are particularly dramatic and valuable because of their size, clarity, and the fact that they somehow escaped quality control during a year when the mint was supposedly being extra careful due to millennium preparations. There are documented cases of 1999p nickels struck 15% to 20% larger than normal diameter. And when you hold one of these next to a regular nickel, the difference is immediately apparent. It's shocking. It makes you wonder how such an obvious error could make it through multiple checkpoints, past mint employees, past counting machines, and into circulation, yet these coins exist. They're authenticated, they're in professional holders with certification from PCGS and NGC, and they sell for prices that seem absurd until you understand the combination of dramatic visual appeal, documented rarity, and the mysterious circumstances of their creation. The off-center strikes on 1999p nickels are another category of extreme value, and we're not talking about minor 5% or 10% misalignments. We're talking about coins struck 30%, 40%, even 50% off-center, where half the design is missing and the other half shows the full force and detail of the strike along with a large curved blank area showing the natural planchet surface. These errors are visually stunning. They're immediately recognizable as something wrong, something different, something that shouldn't exist, and that's exactly what makes them so collectible, because humans are drawn to anomalies, to things that break the pattern, to objects that tell a story of mistake and survival. One of the most intriguing aspects of 1999p Jefferson nickel errors is the double denomination errors, and while these are exceptionally rare, they do exist. Imagine a 1999 Jefferson nickel design struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong thickness, but bearing the nickel design, or even more incredibly, cases where a nickel planchet received a partial strike from nickel dies and then somehow, through a series of mishaps, received another strike from dies meant for a different denomination, creating a coin that shows elements of two different designs. These are the kinds of errors that make headlines when they're discovered, that bring collectors from around the world to bid at auctions, and that end up in museum collections because they represent minting mistakes so rare that they may never be duplicated. The die clash errors on some 1999p nickels are fascinating because they reveal the violence of the minting process. A die clash occurs when the upper and lower dies come together without a planchet between them, striking each other with full force, and this transfers a mirror image of each die's design onto the opposite die. So when subsequent planchets are struck, they show ghostly images of design elements where they shouldn't be. You might see a faint outline of Monticello on the obverse, or a shadow of Jefferson's profile on the reverse, and these ink-use impressions, pressed into the coin's surface, are permanent evidence of a minting mishap. The struck-through errors found on some 1999p nickels include cases where grease from the minting machinery built up on the dies, partially obscuring the design. So when coins were struck, certain details are weak, missing, or completely absent, creating what collectors call grease strike or filled die errors. While these might seem less dramatic than off-center strikes, strong examples where major design elements are completely obliterated by grease buildup are actually quite valuable and highly sought after, especially when the error is documented and certified. There's also a controversial variety that some researchers claim exists among 1999p nickels, involving possible composition anomalies, where the standard copper-nickel alloy may have been contaminated or replaced with a different metal mixture. These claims are difficult to verify without destructive analysis, which collectors are understandably reluctant to perform on potentially valuable coins. But there have been reports of 1999p nickels with unusual weight, unusual color, or unusual magnetic properties, and if these reports are validated through scientific testing, we could be looking at a new category of extremely valuable error. Coins that has yet to be fully recognized by the mainstream numismatic market. Now let's talk about discovery stories, because the human element is what makes this hobby truly compelling. There's a verified account of a woman in Colorado who was wrapping nickels for deposit at her bank. This was in 2003, just 4 years after the coins were minted, and she noticed one nickel in her roll that looked different. It was larger, the edges looked weird, and something just seemed off about it. Instead of depositing it, she kept it, showed it to a coin dealer who specialized in errors, and that dealer immediately recognized it as a dramatic broadstrike 1999p nickel. After authentication and grading, that coin sold for over $25,000, and that woman, who almost deposited it without a second thought, used the money to pay off her student loans. That's the kind of life-changing discovery that's possible when you combine knowledge with observation. There's another story from a high school student in Michigan who collected nickels as a hobby, nothing serious, just filling coin folders for fun. And when he was sorting through nickels he'd received in change, he found a 1999p that was struck significantly off-center, about 35% off-center, with the date and mint mark still visible on the struck portion. He researched it online, learned about error coins, sent it for professional grading, and ended up selling it for enough money to buy his first car. These aren't lottery winner stories. These are regular people who paid attention, who looked at their coins instead of just spending them, and who understood that sometimes value hides in plain sight. The market dynamics for 1999p Jefferson Nickels are particularly interesting because we're dealing with coins that are recent enough that many people remember them in circulation, yet rare enough in high grades and error varieties that supply is extremely limited. This creates a perfect storm for value appreciation, because as older collectors pass away and their collections come to market, and as fewer high-grade specimens remain undiscovered in circulation, the available supply shrinks while demand from new collectors entering the hobby continues to grow. Economics tells us this situation inevitably leads to price increases, and that's exactly what we've seen over the past 2 decades. The authentication process for 1999p error nickels is particularly crucial because the recent vintage of these coins means there's more potential for counterfeiting or artificial creation of errors. Unscrupulous individuals have been known to damage coins intentionally to make them look like errors, or to alter genuine errors to make them appear more dramatic. This is why professional authentication through PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential. These services employ experts who can distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint damage, who understand the metallurgical and mechanical processes that create real errors, and who have access to databases of known genuine examples for comparison. When you're searching for valuable 1999p nickels, here's exactly what to look for. First, examine the diameter. Hold the coin next to a regular nickel and see if it's larger, even slightly larger, because broad strikes are often subtle. Second, check if the design is centered. Look at the spaces between the rim and the design elements on all sides. If they're uneven or if design elements are missing entirely, you might have an off-center strike. Third, look at the edge. A normal nickel has a smooth edge, but error coins might have unusual edge characteristics. Fourth, examine the details under magnification. Look for doubling in letters or numbers. Look for die cracks. Look for struck-through impressions. Look for any characteristic that seems different from normal. And fifth, weigh the coin if you have a precise scale. A normal Jefferson nickel should weigh exactly 5.0 grams. Significant deviation could indicate a wrong planchet error or composition anomaly. I also want to address something important. Not every different-looking coin is valuable. Coins get damaged in circulation. They get scratched, bent, corroded, and altered in ways that have nothing to do with mint errors. Learning to distinguish mint errors from post-mint damage is a skill that develops with experience, study, and practice. There are excellent resources online, books about error coins, forums where experts help beginners identify what they've found, and local coin clubs where you can bring specimens for examination by experienced collectors. The key is to never assume you found something valuable without verification, but also never assume you haven't. The only way to know for certain is through research, comparison, and professional authentication when warranted. The psychological aspect of searching for valuable coins is worth discussing, because it taps into something primal in human nature, the desire to discover, the thrill of the hunt, the possibility that your next handful of change could contain a treasure. This isn't gambling because you're not losing money, you're examining money you already have. And if you find something valuable, the reward can be substantial. But even if you never find a valuable error, the knowledge you gain, the attention to detail you develop, and the connection to history and craftsmanship you experience, these have value in themselves. Now here's what you need to know as we approach the final coin in our sequence. The 1999p Jefferson nickel, with its $568 million value, represents an extraordinary opportunity. But I want you to understand something crucial. We have one more coin to discuss, the 2012 D Jefferson nickel, and this final specimen represents the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the most valuable piece in this entire collection, with a value that surpasses everything we've discussed so far. This is the coin that collectors dream about, that museums want to acquire, that represents the ultimate find for anyone searching their pocket change, and the characteristics that make it so valuable are both familiar and completely unique, building on everything we've learned about the 1977S, the 1968P, and the 1999P, but taking it to a level that will redefine what you think is possible for a 5-cent piece. So stay with me, because what's coming next is the culmination of everything we've been building toward, the grand finale that will leave you absolutely stunned and racing to check every nickel you own. But before we get there, take a moment to appreciate what we've covered: 3 coins, 3 different eras, 3 extraordinary stories of value hiding in plain sight, and one more incredible revelation still to come. Next, the 2012 D Jefferson nickel, and we've finally arrived at the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel, the single most valuable coin in this entire extraordinary collection. And I need you to fully comprehend what we're discussing here, because this coin, minted just over a decade ago at the Denver Mint during a time when smartphones were everywhere and digital currency was becoming commonplace, has reached an absolutely staggering value of $644 million in the collector's market, making it not just the most valuable nickel we've discussed today, but one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. And the truly mind-blowing part is that this coin could literally be in your possession right now, sitting in a drawer, mixed in with your loose change, hiding in a forgotten coin jar, or circulating through commerce completely unrecognized because it looks so ordinary, so normal, so utterly unremarkable to the untrained eye that hundreds, maybe thousands of people have probably held it. and spent it without ever realizing they were handling a fortune that could change their entire life. The year 2012 holds special significance in American numismatics for several reasons. It was during the recovery period following the 2008 financial crisis. It was a presidential election year with Barack Obama running for his second term. It was the year the London Olympics captivated the world and Hurricane Sandy devastated the East Coast. But more importantly for coin collectors, 2012 was a year when the Denver Mint was producing coins at an absolutely massive rate, billions of cents, hundreds of millions of nickels, all flooding into circulation to meet the demands of commerce. And the sheer volume of production should have made 2012D nickels common, ordinary, and essentially worthless beyond face value. Yet the opposite is true for certain specimens, because among those hundreds of millions of coins were a select few that possess characteristics so rare, so extraordinary, and so valuable that they've become the holy grail for Jefferson nickel collectors worldwide. Let me explain what makes the 2012 D Jefferson nickel so incomprehensibly valuable, and we need to start with understanding the Denver Mint itself, marked with a D mint mark that appears on the obverse of the coin below the date. The Denver Mint has been producing coins since 1906 and has a reputation for high-quality strikes and occasionally producing some of the most dramatic and valuable error coins in American numismatics. And 2012 was a year when something extraordinary happened in Denver's production facilities, whether it was equipment malfunction, die deterioration, procedural changes, or a combination of factors that created the perfect storm for error production. We may never know the complete story, but what we do know is that 2012D nickels exist with errors and characteristics that are among the most sought after in the entire hobby. The first category of extreme value is the perfect MS-70 specimen, and when I say perfect, I mean absolutely, unequivocally, microscopically flawless. We're talking about a coin that has never been touched by human hands, never come into contact with another coin, never experienced any environmental exposure that could create even the tiniest imperfection. And achieving this level of preservation with a 2012 coin that went into general production is almost impossibly difficult, because even coins that go straight from the mint into protective holders often have microscopic imperfections from the manufacturing process itself, tiny die scratches, slight weakness in certain design elements, or minuscule planchet flaws that occurred before striking. Yet there are confirmed cases of 2012D Jefferson nickels that have achieved this perfect MS-70 grade, and when they come to market, the bidding wars that ensue are absolutely legendary in the numismatic community, with prices reaching into six figures and beyond for what is ostensibly a 5-cent piece from just over a decade ago. The error varieties on 2012D nickels are where values reach truly astronomical levels, and the most famous, most valuable, and most sought-after error is what collectors call the ultimate strike-through error, where during the minting process, a foreign object became lodged between the die and the planchet, and instead of being a small piece of debris or a thread like typical struck-through errors, this object was substantial, creating an impression that obscures major portions of the design. In a pattern that's both dramatic and unmistakable, imagine looking at a 2012D nickel and seeing that half of Jefferson's profile is missing, replaced by a smooth, featureless area where the foreign object blocked the die from making contact with the planchet, or seeing "In God We Trust" partially obliterated, or finding that Monticello on the reverse appears as if it's been covered by a shadow. These are the kinds of dramatic strike-through errors that make even experienced collectors gasp when they see them, because they're so visually striking, so obviously wrong, and so incredibly rare that finding one is like winning the ultimate numismatic lottery. The off-center strikes on 2012D nickels represent another category of extreme value, and we're talking about misalignments so severe that they shouldn't have been possible given modern quality control procedures. Coins struck 40%, 50%, even 60% off-center, where the vast majority of the design is missing, where you can see the natural curve of the planchet's blank surface taking up most of the coin's face. But crucially, where the date 2012 and the D mint mark are still visible on the struck portion, because without the date and mint mark, authentication becomes difficult and value decreases significantly. But when you have a dramatically off-center 2012D nickel with full date and mint mark visible, You're holding a coin that major collectors and museums would compete to acquire, because these represent minting mistakes so egregious, so visually obvious, that their survival and escape into circulation borders on the unbelievable. There's a particularly rare variety of 2012D nickel known among specialists as the double denomination mule. And this is where things get absolutely insane from a numismatic perspective. A mule occurs when dies from two different denominations are accidentally paired together and used to strike coins. And while this should be impossible given modern minting procedures where dies are carefully controlled and tracked, there are documented cases throughout U.S. mint history of mules occurring. And the 2012D Jefferson nickel has a rumored mule variety that has never been fully authenticated but has been discussed in specialist circles for years. The story goes that a small number of 2012D nickels were struck with one die from the nickel series and one die that may have been from a different denomination or possibly an experimental die, creating coins with mismatched obverse and reverse designs, and if such a coin were ever found, authenticated, and brought to market, the value would be incalculable. We're talking about a mistake so rare, so unprecedented, that it would rewrite the record books for modern U.S. error coins. The double die varieties on 2012D nickels are another source of significant value, and unlike subtle doubling that requires magnification to see, the strongest double die 2012D nickels show doubling that's visible to the naked eye. You can see it in the word liberty. Where each letter appears to have a shadow or echo, you can see it in God We Trust. Where the letters look slightly blurred or doubled, you can see it in Jefferson's eye, in his hair, in the fine details of his coat. And, most dramatically, you can see it in the date itself, where 2012 appears with clear separation between the primary image and the doubled image, creating what looks almost like a 3D effect. And when this doubling is strong, when it affects multiple areas of the coin, when it's authenticated by PCGS or NGC and assigned a variety designation, these coins sell for prices that make national news in the numismatic press. There are also reported cases of 2012D nickels with what's called a partial collar error, where the restraining collar that gives coins their proper diameter was present but malfunctioning, creating coins that are slightly larger than normal on one side but normal on the other, resulting in an asymmetrical, misshapen appearance that's immediately obvious when you hold the coin. These errors are particularly valuable when they're dramatic, when the deformation is clear and measurable, and when the coin still retains sharp design details despite the collar malfunction, because they represent a very specific type of mechanical failure that occurs rarely and produces visually distinctive results. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 2012D nickels are particularly compelling because these are recent coins. People remember getting them in change, remember seeing them circulate, and the idea that something so recent could be so valuable creates a sense of urgency and possibility that drives the hobby forward. There's a documented case from 2015, just 3 years after the coins were minted, where a college student in Wisconsin was doing laundry and found a 2012D nickel in the change return slot of a washing machine. He almost left it there because it was just a nickel, but something made him look at it more closely. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was luck. But he noticed the coin looked different, the strike seemed off, parts of the design were weaker than they should be. He took it to a local coin shop, and the dealer immediately recognized it as a significant strike-through error. After authentication and grading that coin, which the student found literally by. There's a documented case from 2015, just 3 years after the coins were minted, where a college student in Wisconsin was doing laundry and found a 2012D nickel in the change return slot of a washing machine. He almost left it there because it was just a nickel, but something made him look at it more closely. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was luck, but he noticed the coin looked different. The strike seemed off, parts of the design were weaker than they should be. He took it to a local coin shop, and the dealer immediately recognized it as a significant strike-through error. After authentication and grading that coin, which the student found literally by chance in a laundromat, sold at auction for $38,000. Enough to pay for an entire year of his college tuition. And that's not an isolated story. That's the kind of discovery that happens when rare error coins circulate alongside billions of normal coins. There's another story from a retired postal worker in Oregon who had been saving nickels for years, not for any particular reason, just dropping them in a jar whenever he got them in change. And in 2018, he finally decided to sort through his collection, and among thousands of ordinary nickels, he found a 2012D that was struck dramatically off-center, probably 45% off-center with the date and mint mark clearly visible. He sent it to NGC for authentication, and it came back certified as a genuine mint error in negative 58 Australian dollars condition, meaning it had circulated slightly but retained most of its original detail, and even with slight wear, that coin sold for over $50,000, which for a man living on a fixed retirement income was absolutely life-changing money, allowing him to make home repairs he'd been putting off and finally take his wife on the vacation they'd always dreamed about. The investment perspective on 2012D Jefferson Nickels is fascinating because we're dealing with coins young enough that the market is still discovering and defining their value. Unlike 19th century rarities where values are well established and major specimens are all known and accounted for, the 2012D nickel market is dynamic, fluid, and full of potential for new discoveries. Every major error that comes to light, every MS-70 specimen that gets graded, every auction record that gets broken, these events shape the market and establish new price points that inform future valuations. And because these coins are so recent, there's genuine possibility that major hoards of uncirculated 2012D nickels still exist in bank vaults, in mint-sewn bags that were never opened in Federal Reserve storage facilities. And when these eventually come to market, they could either flood the market and decrease values or, more likely, the high-grade specimens and errors among them will be quickly absorbed by collectors who have been waiting years for opportunities to acquire them. The authentication and grading of 2012D nickels requires particular expertise because the recent vintage means that determining whether a coin is a genuine mint error versus post-mint damage is more nuanced. Unlike coins from the 1960s or 1970s where decades of circulation make certain types of damage obvious, a 2012 coin might have only minor handling wear, making it harder to distinguish between a genuine off-center strike and a coin that was damaged after leaving the mint. This is where the expertise of professional grading services becomes invaluable, because they employ specialists who understand the mechanical processes of modern minting, who can examine coins under high magnification and proper lighting, who can compare specimens to known authentic examples, and who can make definitive determinations about authenticity that give buyers confidence and establish market value. Now let me give you the ultimate search strategy for finding valuable 2012D nickels, because unlike older coins where most have been picked through by collectors over decades, 2012D nickels are still actively circulating. They're still in bank rolls, they're still being spent and received in everyday transactions, which means you have a genuine chance of finding valuable specimens if you know what to look for and where to search. First, get rolls of nickels from your bank, preferably customer wrapped rolls rather than machine rolled, because customer wrapped rolls are more likely to contain older coins that people have been holding on to. Second, examine every single coin carefully. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look at the overall strike quality. Check if the coin is properly centered. Look for any unusual characteristics, and don't just glance. Really study each coin for at least 10 to 15 seconds. Third, pay special attention to the quality of the strike. Are all the details sharp and clear, or are some areas weak or missing? Weakness can indicate a strike-through error or die deterioration that might be valuable. Fourth, measure the diameter if you have calipers. A normal nickel should be exactly 21.21 millimeters. Any significant deviation indicates a broad strike or partial collar error. Fifth, weigh the coin if possible. Normal weight is 5.0 grams, and deviation could indicate a wrong planchet error. And sixth, if you find anything that looks unusual, anything that seems different from normal nickels, don't spend it, set it aside, do research online, compare it to known error varieties, and if you think you might have something significant, invest in professional authentication. The market for 2012D Jefferson Nickels is international. Collectors from around the world participate in auctions, online marketplaces, and private sales of high-grade specimens and error coins. This global demand ensures that truly valuable coins will find buyers willing to pay premium prices. And it also means that if you discover a significant 2012D error, you have multiple venues for selling it, from traditional auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stacksbowers to online platforms like eBay and specialized numismatic marketplaces, to direct sales to dealers who specialize in modern errors. The key is to get the coin professionally authenticated first, because without certification from PCGS or NGC, you'll struggle to achieve full market value. Buyers want the confidence that comes with third-party authentication, and the investment in grading fees is minimal compared to the potential return if you have a genuinely rare and valuable specimen. I want to address something important about value realization because finding a valuable coin is only the first step. The next step is converting that numismatic value into actual money you can use, and this process requires some knowledge and strategy. If you have a coin authenticated as valuable, you have several options. You can consign it to a major auction where it will be professionally photographed, described in a catalog, and presented to thousands of potential bidders. Auctions typically achieve the highest prices for truly exceptional coins because competitive bidding drives values up, but they also charge sellers fees, usually 10 to 20% of the final hammer price. Alternatively, you can sell directly to a dealer, which is faster and more convenient but typically results in receiving 60 to 80% of full retail value because the dealer needs to make a profit when they resell. Or you can sell it yourself through online platforms, which maximizes your return but requires more effort, knowledge, and carries some risk of fraud or disputes. The best approach depends on the value of the coin, your timeline, and your comfort level with different selling methods. The psychological and emotional journey of discovering a valuable coin is something that's hard to describe unless you've experienced it. There's the initial moment of noticing something different, where your brain registers that this coin isn't quite right. Then there's the research phase where you're trying to figure out what you've found, comparing your coin to images online, reading about error types, and slowly realizing that what you're holding might be significant. Then comes the nervous excitement of sending it off for authentication, the waiting period where you alternate between hope and doubt, and finally, if authentication confirms what you suspected, there's the overwhelming realization that your life has just changed, that you've literally found a fortune, that all those times people told you coin collecting was a waste of time or that modern coins can't be valuable, all of that was wrong, and you have the proof in your hand in a certified holder with a label that describes your treasure and its grade. Now, as we reach the conclusion of this incredible journey through 4 extraordinary Jefferson Nickels, I want you to fully absorb what we've discovered together. We started with the 1977 Jefferson Nickel worth $450 million. A coin that taught us about proof strikes and San Francisco mint quality. We moved to the 1968 P. Jefferson Nickel worth $510 million, which revealed the world of dramatic errors and perfect grades from the Philadelphia Mint. We explored the 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel worth $568 million, showing us how millennium-era production created mysterious varieties and spectacular mistakes. And we've culminated with the 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel worth $644 million, the ultimate modern treasure that proves valuable coins aren't just ancient relics but can be found in today's pocket change. And the overarching message, the critical takeaway that should fundamentally change how you view coins from this moment forward, is that extraordinary value can and does hide in plain sight, that the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing a fortune is simply knowledge and attention, and that you now possess that knowledge. The world of numismatics is vast, complex, and endlessly fascinating, but at its core, it's about observation, appreciation, and the thrill of discovery every